What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Warren. I am a banker here in London and a property investor across the UK. My goal is to live free and independently from property. So I'm looking for an income of £3,000 per month from property. If that's what you're on to, like and subscribe. That is what my channel is all about. So guys, there is a problem in the UK. Young people in the UK, Millennials and Gen-Zs, are being locked out of property ownership. You've probably heard a lot about this already, okay? How in the world are us in our 20s and our 30s gonna afford a house when the time comes? And we know that they're already way out of our price range. On average, 8.5 times the average person's salary. That's the cost of the house facing us. Compared to the 1980s when our parents were buying houses, around 4.5 times on average. So we know that the property market goes up and down over time. That's what most markets do by nature. They fluctuate. Whether that's the housing market, the economy, stocks and shares market, etc. And on screen right now, you can see that since 2000, so over the last 23 years, from 2000 to 2023, you can see this line looks pretty much like the blade of a saw. It's up, it's down, it's jagged, it's not smooth. And that is what the market does. It fluctuates, it goes up and it goes down. But if you look closely, you can see that over time, over the long term, generally speaking, it goes up. It slants diagonally upwards from the bottom left to the top right, because over the long term, property prices go up. And that's why I and smart investors invest in property. So we're going to talk about the latest fluctuation in the housing market. We know that from the beginning of 2021 to the first half of 2022, the housing market in the UK was on a madness. We were seeing annual growth rates of above 10%, okay? And then from midway 2022 to now, the housing market has been in decline, guys. And again, as I said, that's what markets do, but because it's going down, predictably, it's all over the news. Usually I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the news, guys. I comment on it and I react to it for the sake of the channel because it can be interesting, but my investing decisions aren't governed by what's in the news because usually it's sensationalist, it's alarmist, on purpose to make you click, to make you watch, okay? But I'm going to react to a video now because the second half in particular makes some really good points. Let's get straight into it.
House prices have ticked down a little bit. They have. Now, you know, ordinarily house prices are falling. Oh my God, that's absolutely terrible for Middle England and so on. But of course, for your generation, Ellie and Tom, you like the fact that house prices are falling because it means you might have more of a chance of buying a house. So let's have a look at this. So you get all kinds of house price indices from the estate agents, from Rightmove, from Purple Bricks and all the rest of it. But they tend to be offer prices, and offer prices often aren't met in reality.
So what he means by that when he's talking about offer prices, specifically Rightmove, they are one of the biggest compiler of house price growth in the UK. They base that off of asking prices. So if I'm listing a house, I want a specific price. And you know, there are thousands, tens of thousands of people listing their houses on Rightmove, and all of the data is based on asking prices. So not necessarily the sold price, okay? And that sold price could be above or below.
So when the likes of the Halifax, who actually base their house price indices on mortgages awarded, so deals that have actually been done, then you got to pin back your ears. So let's have a look at our graphic here. House prices, as you say, Ellie, they are down 2.6% on June 2022. That's the third successive monthly fall and the biggest fall since 2011. So that's that 12-year biggest fall. The typical UK home now costs $285,932. Though, Tom, you are thinking, if you are not saying, that wouldn't buy you, a studio flat in the areas of London where you might want.
Yeah, so I was going to make what might be quite an obnoxious point, yeah? But let's not forget that there is a difference between the rest of the UK and London, as this guy alluded to, right? £285,000 is, of course, expensive. I mean, that is a huge amount of money to anybody. But when you consider that the average price of a home in London is round about £550,000, you can see that there is a huge discrepancy between how much it's going to cost you to get onto the property ladder, depending on where in the UK you live. Generally speaking, the south of the UK, a lot more expensive than the north, right? And it fits that a lot more young people up north, Midlands upwards, Millennials, Gen Zs, find it easier to get onto the housing ladder than we do down here in the south, especially in London. That's why I invest in properties up north, because of affordability.
want to live, right? Now, the average 2-year fixed rate mortgage, this is why house prices are going down, because just a couple of years ago, people were getting a 2-year fix for 1 or 2%. The average 2-year fix now is 6.54%. That's why house prices are coming down, because people can't afford to borrow enough money to fund bigger offers.
Facts.
So when the mortgage rates go up, people can afford to offer less, therefore house prices come down.
We're talking...
Sorry, and he's making some good points. I told you the second half of this in particular is really good. When you get into territory, as we are now in our economy, where interest rates are high and so mortgage rates are high, it's going to cost more overall to buy a house. So it's going to cost you more for the same price house if you have, say, a 1.5% rate versus a 6.5% rate. Over the course, the life of the mortgage, you're going to be paying back a significantly greater amount of money. So therefore, that's going to factor into the offers that you make on houses, if at all. You're going to be making lower offers. And we're seeing that in the market in general, in the housing market, prices are going down because interest rates are higher. It's more expensive. So people are like, I've got to save money somehow when it comes to what is, for most people, the biggest purchase of their lives.
Falling from an incredibly high historic level. I mean, we saw double-digit increases in house prices in the wake of COVID. This is not making up for that.
This is not making up for that. House prices go up a lot, and then occasionally when they go down a little bit, we jump up and down about it. So it's a kind of sore edge. There's a constant upward trend compared to earnings.
Absolutely.
You know, house prices have doubled.
So he's making some great points compared to earnings. Again, that's the point that a lot of people sleep on. The growth of property over time, real growth, exceeds real wage growth over time. And again, let me just quickly put a graphic on screen to show you what real wage growth has been over the last couple of decades, because I think this might shock you. So right here, if you pay particular attention to the blue line, so the dark blue line is average total pay for the average UK citizen, excluding bonuses, and the light blue is including bonuses. Notice how from basically just after 2007, so we're talking about 2008 onwards, these blue lines have sometimes gone slightly below and slightly above zero, okay? On average, since 2008, the average real wage growth, so that's excluding inflation, across the UK for the average worker for some 15 years has been pretty much close to zero. Guys, that is mad when you really think about it. Millennials, Gen Zs like you and me, since we've gone into the workforce, compared to our parents and grandparents, our wages have not been growing, okay, in real terms. They've been flat.
In the last 15 years, earnings have gone up by like 25 or 30%. So
that's nominal, not real wage growth.
Unaffordability reigns, locking your generation out of home ownership. 25 to 34-year-olds, 62% of them owned their own home in the early 90s. It's now less than 30%. So more than half of a whole generation at childbearing age, family forming age, household forming age are locked out of home ownership.
And
that's really sad, guys. I mean, 60-something% down to 30-something% in basically a generation. That, if nothing else, that stat alone should tell you just how bad the situation is as it relates to home ownership and affordability for millennials and Gen Z in this country. And at the core of this, again, what a lot of people don't talk about is not so much the rise in prices of homes over time. Yes, that is an issue, but it's the supply of homes in the UK.
And that's so important. People, I think everyone wants to be able to form families, have spare bedrooms, have children, like sort of create that sort of basis for the unit of society, and we're not being able to do that.
This is messing with our demography. When I wrote a book on this a couple of years ago, I managed to pull together this calculation that back in the early 90s, average childbearing age, like first kid, right, was 28 years old. So a mum was 28-year-old on average when she had her first kid. That was in the 1990s. And at that point, that share of 28-year-olds, only 10% were in rented accommodation, right? The average age has gone up 1 year to 29% with mums having their first kids. And 40% of that cohort are now in rented accommodation. And
so that's almost a halving of the level that are in houses that they own.
That's right. So you've now got a situation where so many young...
Yeah, I love how he's linking this through to, other areas of society and existence, right? So you've got families now that aren't able to afford to buy their own homes to house their families in. So they're probably going to be delaying having children or not at all because they can't afford a bigger home, which they will inevitably need, especially if you're going to have a larger family.
People I know, so many young people I know in the GB newsroom, so many young people I know who are, you know, friends with my kids who are in their early 20s, so many people who write to me, stop me on the street. Youngsters just can't afford to buy homes, even if they're in professional jobs, even if there are two of them getting together. It's really, really tough. And that's the main reason, I'm afraid, why your generation, Tom and Ellie, are going to be the first for hundreds of years that are less well off than their parents.
Well, on that happy note
to end on.
On that note, yeah, let's end on there. We are one of the first generations to be less well off than our parents, right? And I think, again, not to sound like a broken record, but there's two core things at the center of this. It's supply of homes. If we're talking specifically about houses, if we had more houses, overall, they'll be cheaper. The growth in house prices wouldn't be as crazy as it has been if they were building enough houses year on year. So we'd be able to afford them more. But also, it's about wages, right? You have to be able to actually have an income to buy a house in the first place. And as I showed you, real wage growth has been down the toilet for 15 years. We are not as productive. It's all about productivity and what the economy produces. And we've been masking that for well over a decade now with quantitative easing, printing money to get ourselves out of sticky economic situations, but our economy isn't getting more productive. We're not producing more goods, more services, and having our incomes rise as a result. That is the reality of this, guys. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Sorry I don't have more of an optimistic good news story, but you know, it's a real article, real commentary on a real issue in our economy. How do you feel about house price growth and the prospects of owning a house? Let me know in the comments. Thanks as always, guys, for supporting the channel. Please continue to do so. I'll see you guys on the next one.